all of the valid moves from the other pieces and allow the king to move himself, so that the king can avoid danger. And if the king then doesn't have any valid moves, then that means that it's checkmate, because the king cannot be protected and he can't run away either. And that checking is done over here. So in this case, the piece blocking is going to have no valid moves, because inside of here I also, as you can see, remove all of the valid moves from the piece, as long as they're not a king. If you remember, inside of, oh, here we go, check situation of board, when I call this method, I call it in a for each loop. So I call it each time for every single piece on the board. That is of the color that I am currently working with, or the player's color that is currently their turn. So this is going to delete or remove all of the valid moves from all of the pieces, even though I don't actually have a loop here. But because I have a loop here and call the method n amount of times, it works. I don't think that, actually I do have a few loops inside of here. Never mind, I'm not going to talk about that. So let me just find my method again. I'm completely lost. Okay, that's a different method. Good, I'm not lost anymore. So then how I check to see whether the player is in checkmate or not is the following. If the king can move, or if a piece can move to save the king, then can block true, returns true, and therefore black is, or whoever turn it is just in check, not in checkmate. As I said before, in the previous lesson, we assume that they are in checkmate and then prove that wrong. I found that to be the easiest way to do it. And so that removes them from checkmate. However, the loop still carries on, so that we can make sure that a check is obeyed and that the king has to move out of danger. So that this method is run as many times as that's needed to remove the valid moves, which are not supposed to be valid anymore in the case of check. Now, I think that we can, well, actually, okay, I didn't explain this part, I explained this part. The piece under attack is going to be the king always, but I still decided to call this method with the argument of piece under attack being the king being named as piece under attack in case I want to use it for anything else. But piece under attack, valid moves greater than 0, that's true. Or piece blocking, that can be any of the pieces, because I call all of the pieces from the player whose turn it is. And if any of them have a valid moves count of greater than 0, then it returns true. Now, I can do this because beforehand, in this chain, I check and remove their valid moves if they are not supposed to have them. So let's start off with the simpler ones. Let's start off with the knight. As you can see, this is going to be the shortest one. So this is entered if the length of pieces attacking is equal to 1. As if it's greater than 1, this is entered. If it's 0, then this method is never called. If it's 2, 3 or more, then, well, this is called, and this is again never called. So if there is only one piece attacking the king, and that piece is a knight, then the following happens. I go through all of the valid moves of the knight that is attacking. I go through the copy of it so that I can edit the actual list. And then if piece attacking dot square of piece doesn't equal j dot the valid move, where j is the piece blocking valid moves copy. So this piece blocking valid moves copy is the list of the piece which is trying to which can potentially protect the king. So let's actually get the chess up over here. So, for example, if I have a... Well, that's probably a more difficult way. Let's get that there, that there. Well, that's not going to work out either. Okay, let's just put that there. So, say this pawn... I'm checking whether this pawn can potentially protect my king. We know it can't, but we have to check that. How we check that is by going through its valid moves, so through the pawn's valid moves. This is the piece blocking valid moves copy. And we check if piece attacking dot square of piece doesn't equal the valid move that we are looking at, and if this was, imagine the rook was actually a knight and it was actually attacking the king. So probably a better example would be something like this, if I can actually set it up correctly for once. There, well, I don't want to do it that way because I want to... Oh, no, no. Black's turn, there we go. And something like this. So the only way that I can protect the king is either moving the king out of danger or killing the knight. And if I am trying to protect the king with another piece other than moving the king himself, the only way to do that, to protect yourself from a knight, is to kill the knight. And if the piece, the valid move that I'm looking at, doesn't kill the knight, then it's not a valid move. As you can see, I am not allowed to move the pawn forward because that doesn't get me out of check. And because it's not a valid move, I just remove it from piece blocking.valid moves. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. The only way to protect yourself from a knight attacking you is either to move away or kill the knight. And that's what this does. And again, it checks for all of the pieces which can kill the knight. In this case, I can only run away or kill the knight with this pawn. I don't think that anything else is currently attacking my knight, or the black knight. Okay, I think that I explained that enough. Let's move on to the white and black pawns. Now, with this I had a few complications because, well, what if the player can perform en passant at that point and kill the pawn which is attacking you? So, in a normal situation, let's again start up the game to demonstrate. Here we go. I'm just moving the knight back and forth because I found that to be the easiest way to deal with such a situation. Oops, I didn't mean to move there, I meant to move over there. Move one forward. Now if I move my the black pawn there, in a normal situation, if there was no en passant, then the only way to get out of check is to move this king away, or directly attack the black pawn with another piece. But I can perform en passant, meaning that I can eliminate this threat without attacking the piece where it currently is, by attacking behind it, because of, again, en passant. And that kind of complicated things a bit. And that is checked over here. So if the attacking piece is a black pawn, and the piece blocking isn't a white pawn, then I just do the same thing as I did with a knight. Because the only way to protect yourself from a pawn attacking you is either to kill it or run away from it. You can't block its attack, because if you have a rook, then you can intercept the attack, is where I'm getting at. So this is the same, this code, well, this for each loop is the same as the knight. But then I do check that it's not a white pawn. However, if it is a white pawn, then, well, I do the following. I think that I can maximize here, it should be fine. I check. Again, I go through the valid moves of J, sorry. I go through the valid moves of the piece blocking, and I check for this. If piece attacking that square of piece doesn't equal the valid move, so this means that if the piece which is attacking you, i.e. in our case the black pawn, isn't the same as the valid move of my white pawn, if their squares aren't the same, and then we have not something, so that's going to return true if it's false and so on. I think that you understand that. I check this. What this does is j.the valid move equals all squares plus and then int row plus 1 and int column. So this is looking at the piece's coordinates, but it's also looking at the one row above it. So it's looking at this, but one row above it, so it's looking at this. So if that is empty, as you can see over here, and is a valid move, then I don't remove it. However, if it's either filled up with a piece, or if it isn't a valid move, then I can remove it, because so if there is a piece over here, that means that the turn for when I can perform en passant has gone away. I am no longer able to do that. And I don't know how else to explain it. But if it is a valid move, then that means that en passant is possible there to kill this pawn. And this pawn is the threat that I'm trying to eliminate. And if there was a piece there, then killing that piece would not eliminate the threat, which is why I have to check that there is no piece there, as again killing the piece that would be there wouldn't eliminate the threat. And I'm checking for it being a valid move, because if it is a valid move, then and is empty, then that means that en passant can happen. It's the only time when such a thing can happen. If I had moved an extra turn, well, I can't actually do that because I'm in check, obviously. But if you had moved an extra turn before doing this, so maybe doing this and this, well, okay, I need to work on that. That is not supposed to work like that, but that's a problem with the pawn. In that case, then I shouldn't be able to take the piece there. And I will come back to fixing that. It is the pawn's problem. It's not a problem with this new code that I have. I need to fix it in the pawn. I shouldn't be able to take the piece if that's the case. And I just have the opposite for if white pawn is the attacker and the black pawn is blocking. I just check for that, and here instead of having int row plus 1, I have int row minus 1. And that's how I do the checking for the black pawn and the white pawn attacking.